or you're watching us on the YouTube WNST TV channel, you'll be in for a real treat because I bring this guy on every other week for no other reason than I think he likes me, and he's still trying to repay me back at 1 cent per segment for the generosity of the Los Angeles Dodgers last year on the 4th of July on the Give a Spit Tour. Mike Harmon hosts sports radio out in Los Angeles, California, but he is a Chicagoan, and you can catch his act out at Fox Sports as well as at the Swollen Dome on Twitter. Welcome in from the West Coast, some would say the best coast, especially when it's dreary here on summertime. We welcome Mike Harmon back onto the program. Mike, what's going on, man? How's life? I know you've been talking a lot of NBA. I'm going to give you a rest, but we're not going to mention LeBron or Steph Curry or parades or any of that stuff in this segment. How about that?
Sounds good to me. Anytime I can kick that to the curb for 5 minutes and see what else is going on in the sporting world is all right by me, although it's been a lot of fun to cover it and watch different things at play, legacies and histories, and some of the hyperbole that just frankly got annoying. Some of that's gotten kicked to the wayside, but certainly it's still on the grand scale, getting everybody excited, because as soon as the NBA Finals are over, it's really not June 21st that starts summer, right? It's the end of the NBA Finals, but unfortunately that just continues to go.
Well, it'll be NFL season soon enough, but we had our thing this week. I want to ask you about this because the Eugene Monroe story came up. You're in a national environment. I don't know what the folks at Fox Sports tell you, and you're in a place where, quite frankly, I would think down the hallway, half the people in the hallway have a medicinal card to go score weed at the little places with the green crosses somewhere, between Burbank and Beverly Hills, right? It's a whole different thing on the East Coast. I think it's an whole different thing generationally. I think, John Harbaugh and many NFL coaches are of an era where they had dads like Jack Harbaugh, and weed was just one of those things that was, right up there with, ISIS and cocaine and things you just don't do. And yet the west part of this country has sort of come around, and certainly the real medicinal, not the, I want to smoke some weed on the weekend so I have a card, but real medicinal stuff having to do with cancer and all that. Eugene Monroe has taken a position, and I've called him a bit of a Curt Flood, because as he was cut this week, probably as much for not playing and being injured as much as his outspoken stance on marijuana, but I would say he is the first player in an era where for the last quarter of a century, I know for a fact there is a large percentage, I don't want to say half, but certainly more than 10 or larger than 20% of professional athletes that I know who recreationally or medicinally or just because it feels good like to smoke a little Scooby. It's obviously legal in Denver. It's legal in Washington. It's legal in Washington, D.C. It's commonly used on the West Coast, and yet Eugene Monroe has become, at least for this week, the first athlete, other than Ricky Williams, who's an ex-athlete, who's opening a gym for cannabis users. But this is a really, from a national sports radio debate and what you do for a living, this is a real box of chocolates that will be opened and will continue to be open. It's not going back into the can, as they would say, right?
No, that's it, is that, as we're evaluating where we're at, learning more and more about the concussive effects and long-term health issues related to football players in the CTE studies and all of that, and that's part of the equation. The other is players are smarter about, at least for the most part. Occasionally you have the guy that just takes what he's going to take, and that's the end of it. And, you talk to any football player, they know what date they're being tested, unless they're already in the program and some of the randomness starts popping up. They know when they're going to be tested, so they smoke, they do what they're going to do, and then they're clean when it comes time to go get their cup sample done. So when you're talking about Eugene Monroe, he's looking at it from a larger perspective. I mean, as you guys I know have talked about a lot there, it's getting rid of all of the effects of the other pain-killing drugs.
It's about opioids as much as it's about, about marijuana. I mean, listen, my wife, with all she's been through in 28 months, I cannot begin to tell you the stuff they put into her that they wouldn't put into a racehorse. She had LASIK. She had morphine. She had all the stuff that Prince died from. She had all that. The stuff they were giving Michael Jackson. She had all of that and has survived it on the other side. It is kind of amazing that she's not popping pills, quite frankly, because she doesn't remember 6 months of her life from these pills. And when you're given this stuff, we have seen it wreck lives. That's a great argument, but then there's the marijuana argument where that fits in. But clearly, the traditional world that we live in doesn't want to discuss that in a lot of places. And in other places, it's you go down the street in Denver, and it's like I said, it's like buying a videotape in the 80s. There's a store on every corner.
Yeah, I think part of it is, that generational thing, and you're still looking at a divide in philosophy. And while we talk about it on a larger political level to that degree, here it's still very simple. I'm amazed that the pushback is so strong when you see the economic ramifications to a state. And once you start getting some better regulation in, and I know we're going to talk about the NHL heading to Las Vegas, the boogeyman, it may be entering the fray of professional sports, but more regulation, better control, and you can tax the hell out of it and make your cities better. And in Baltimore, my hometown of Chicago, certainly here in Los Angeles, I think when you start looking at the possibility of adding a lot of tax revenue, you clean up a lot of the problems that are pervading.
It really is amazing.
Cities.
I mean, we lost a lot of our horse racing industry here over a quarter of a century when Delaware, West Virginia, all got casinos, right? New Jersey, obviously, anybody could have driven the AC at any point during that. And for all of our lives, we've heard about Vegas and the NFL wanting to stay away and illicit gambling and, as you said, the boogeyman and all of that. The fact that the NHL has put down, a flag there, and that I had JT the Brick on earlier this week. I know he's one of your compatriots, one of the voices of the Raiders. He was on before the NHL went into Vegas and said the Raiders are going to Vegas. Like nobody in Oakland's going to save them. They don't want to go down to L.A. and and shine the shoes of the Rams in the same building. But if that's their best deal, but Vegas will want them, and there doesn't appear to be any other play. And wouldn't that be something? The Raiders putting down in Sin City. Right? I mean, it almost seems like that's where Al Davis would have wanted them to go in the end, right?
Well, you start talking about the global base and the Oakland Raider fandom, and to just finish the Eugene Monroe, I mentioned Toradol. That's the four-letter word. Talk to a lot of football players. How many shots did you get? And they start thinking about it. It's like I don't want to count that high, because they're fearful of the long-term effects as much as they were of knocking heads in the NFL. They're fearful of what they took and what were injected with to stay on the field of play.
Dude, just Google the word Toradol. Toradol. It's incredible, right?
No, that's just it. And then there's a few others with longer names, more complicated to pronounce. But this is the gateway one that everybody has at least heard the term once, and it's pretty frightening, the number of side effects and residual effects that it has. And just start thinking, all right, you had one week 1, and then we take a little break, and then you get another one week 3. You're talking, maybe 8 to 9 shots of that over the course of one season. And if you're a long-term interior guy like the Eugene Monroe, how many times did you get shot up over the course of your career to get yourself back out there? And now guys are worried about the long haul. Before it was, hey, I can play, and love of the game may not have changed, but certainly the price of entry certainly has, and we have more information. Now back to the issue of hand of Las Vegas. Al Davis, this just screams him. And we know from the NFL perspective, Mark Davis doesn't have the same war chest of funds to go to work with. City of Oakland has zero money to support them. If they could, they're going to lose the Warriors.
Well, this is simple,
San Francisco. There's a lot of complications in terms of the legislative process, and when you're looking at public funds, it's awful hard to argue.
Well, and you live in California. There is no such thing there. Here, our community was bent over twice, right? And I mean that in the best sense of bent over, Mike. Bent over the way I like to be bent over, with an NBA or with an NHL or a Major League Baseball team and an NFL team here back in the 90s. We had to lose our NBA team. We had to lose our NFL team. Our community ponied up, and now 25 years later, we got a baseball stadium over here that the owner has run the franchise into. It's really taken advantage of the public, which is one of the things that really, really pisses me off at the heart of all of this is that stadium was built to do good things and to be a big part, and that's part of what it's sold as. This will be good for our community. Well, it needs to be stewarded the right way, right? And stewarded the right way means that you don't just take and take and take. You have to give some. I think the Ravens here over 20 years, you look at that stadium being built, obviously a worse use of money because they use the stadium so infrequently. We didn't put a roof on it, and it doesn't host regional games and conventions and many rock concerts, although last week, and the scene downtown was kind of nice. But baseball stadiums were built, hey, we're going to use this one time, it's going to pack downtown, it's going to do all that. Same thing with all these arenas, which seem to be really good investments for the most part, between concerts and circuses and hockey games and basketball games. Most of the big arenas are really, really utilized and utilized well and really do create hotel nights and all of that type of stuff. But for Vegas, all of that's sort of built in, but the problem there is no other industry there outside of gambling, and that's really been a problem there over the last couple of decades where they thought they would see this incredible growth, but the internet has taken away a lot of gambling, entertainment. It's in the middle of nowhere, and there's no secondary industry in Las Vegas.
Well, no, sure, and then add to the fact that as much as you can say we've been in a several-year run of increase economy-wise, and certainly the stock market as a whole, much higher than it was 6-7 years ago. I don't know on an individual household basis how much of an impact you have, so folks aren't making the same trips that they did to Vegas and blowing money. Spending wisely
Lost
at
wages.
The casinos. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's why they, as a friend of mine used to say on our Sunday morning fantasy show, they don't build a lot of La Quintas. And no disrespect to them. They build a lot bigger, faster, and with a lot more light.
Well, that would be the word for Mark Davis. They're going to build him a Taj Mahal over there that's going to be Vegas style and say, just bring your team down and print the money. That sounds like a good deal to me, right? I mean, that's the deal they're all looking for, and that's a deal he's never, ever, ever going to get in Oakland.
Well, and that's one of the things that really becomes the interesting political part of this is how much residual resentment for Al Davis is there in that room. Because you have a lot of people that, if they've been long-term NFL guys, they get what he meant to the league overall. But the younger crowd, folks that have been following the NFL, maybe a little less time, what do they remember? A lot of legal battles, a lot of headaches, a lot of problems. And Mark Davis, again, not the guy with the heavy bucks, which is why, when it got down to this Los Angeles thing, you got Stan Kroenke with his $7 billion plus. You got Dean Spanos, who he wanted to be the big fish over the Raiders in their joint proposal. And so he's still trying to figure out a way to get San Diego to come up with money to get him his downtown stadium. But for people you talk to there, that's not going to happen. That's never going to happen. And eventually he's going to have to bite the bullet and come up here to Los Angeles or find a way to finance it himself. With Mark Davis, there's always just been rumored, all right, he'll get a money man to make this thing all work. Well, now it might actually just be the tourism board of Las Vegas, where they're talking $500 million plus add what the NFL would give to the table. He doesn't have to come up with nearly as much money to get things done. Vegas is willing to drop that big a pile of cash.
The NFL's playing games over in England now where you can walk into the back and make a bet, right? I mean, literally.
But that's just it. All of the stuff of, hey, Las Vegas is this dangerous place, that's a joke. Like we're just talking. You can go online. I can get on right now. I could walk down to the corner bar, and I'm sure with one to two conversations, I could find a guy who makes book. Saying that because you're in Nevada, suddenly you've got problems. Now, I get it that there's the secondary part of it is the players. I'm assuming 95% of them are just going to stay professional and keep their head above any legal concerns. I understand that the NFL, given its recent image problems, might just think that one or two guys showing up in the tabloids doing something even not criminal, just a little bit dumb, is not the best look for the league. But the reality is you're always looking to expand your marketplace, and sometimes that's going to take you to places where you do the evaluation, and I can't see anything on the surface that would preclude a move there. I mean, there's just nothing that's that bad a situation other than you're going to create jobs, short-term stadium, long-term security and people taking care of things on game day. Now it's just a matter of how do you best utilize a facility. Like you say there in Baltimore, if you're only going to use something 8 times a year, you really haven't done it right? That was the knock in Chicago when they turned down the blueprints for Camden Yards and built what was U.S. Cellular Field when it opened 25 years ago.
Yeah, they wanted Yankee Stadium. They didn't want Ebbets Field, right?
Well, but to get public funding, they had to agree to what was supposed to be a, quote, multi-purpose stadium. And instead, you got something that didn't serve anybody. Baseball fans didn't like the look of it. The upper decks were were very steep. You got a great leg workout working out there. I mean, you want to do your cardio. That was the
I
where
got to
you
work
wanted
off
to
the
go.
elotes and the beer and the sausage I eat on the south side.
No, but that's it, right? You know, you get your deep dish pizza, and then you walk to your upper deck level. You can have 2 slices instead of 1.
And you fall asleep in the 4th inning.
Well, the naptastrophe, Harmon patent pending, is always something you have to worry about. But eventually they started retrofitting it to make it just a baseball stadium. Because you know what happened? Everybody started having their concerts at Soldier Field. And then you've got more at Wrigley with that neighborhood feel.
I'm going to see Pearl Jam this summer. I mean, Petty's played there. Billy Joel, they all play Wrigley Field.
Right, but what they did was they took that inch. Well, they were given an inch back in 1988 when the lights went up, and the neighborhood then has given a mile as they realized.
Well, it was either that or the team was going to move to St. Petersburg, remember?
Well, allegedly.
True.
You know, so you have all of that. Again, it keeps getting politicized, and wherever.
Well,
the
it has to be
flows.
politicized when you're asking the people for the money, right?
Well, no, but that's just it, right? If folks want to do it privately, and there are a few of them that, well, why would you use your own money?
Hey, that's like Mr. Kroenke. Mr. Kroenke
time.
used his own money, right?
Well, but he realized that he was buying a bunch of land that was, you know, on a relative basis, a depressed property. So I think he got a pretty good deal for the land. And then by controlling the stadium and everything else, he's just saying, look, we're going to be the big bad wolf, and all big concerts and everything else will be here going forward. And
yeah,
we'll
Inglewood, always up to no good, right?
But you know, it's smart. It's right off the freeway. Traffic getting in and out will be interesting to watch how they flow, at least early on. But he decided he just wanted to end all discussions by saying, I'll pay for it. You don't have to worry about it. We don't have to worry about municipalities going on the ballot, waiting another year to get a quasi-answer, and then all the surveys and everything that fall out of that. He just said, I'll build it. I'll pay for it. And you know what? That's a nice, easy way. But how many guys in business use their own cash? We get into this discussion all the time.
OPM.
You know, it's like, hey, they want to borrow how much, or they're going to finance how much? Like, this guy's worth how many millions of dollars? Like, when guys do Kickstarter funds for movies, it incenses people here in Los Angeles. Like, why would they use their own money if they can give you a T-shirt and you're happy and you finance the movie and they run, you know, when the credits run really fast on cable television before the next movie, your name's in there somewhere. You feel great. You contributed $50. That's $50 he doesn't have to spend, or she doesn't have to spend. It's the way business works in general. So, you know, as much as I abhor the idea of, you know, the things being taken away from arts and from schools and everything else in a city to get things done, you're hopeful that your negotiations are at least strong enough that on the back end, that team has a sense of responsibility, or teams that occupy said building, that they give back to the community, that there's a percentage coming back, and that loan gets repaid perhaps a little bit more accelerated when your team has deep playoff runs, and that your community benefits. That, at least we all think that's
the theory.
That's our goal.
That's the pitch.
Theory. And how you can do that in practice is a whole other thing, because people's emotions, especially if you've got a long tenured team that's suddenly saying, you know what, I'll take my ball and I'll leave. So emotion starts getting in, and when that happens, it gets messy.
Mike Harmon joining us here. He is at Fox Sports Radio, a national syndicated host. Love having him on the program. You can follow him out at Swollen Dome as well. All right, so Harmon, I have a little conundrum, and I don't think I've admitted this on the air all week, so I'll admit it to you for the weekend. I've been doing this 32 years as a media member. I feel like now that Ali died, I never saw him fight, but he did fight at the Capitol Center. I've tried to see things, right? Like, I've seen David Beckham bended. I've seen Michael Jordan. I saw Larry Bird, Magic, and Kareem back in the day. You know, all the baseball. I never saw Mickey Mantle play, but I did see Hank Aaron play, right? I did see Frank Robinson play. So the things that you would want to check off on your bucket list, Messi has become my latest sort of target, right?
Sure.
I have never seen him play. I had a chance in Argentina when he was very, very young 10 years ago. I did not go to the game that day. I was reading about him in the English magazine or English newspaper when I was there seeing the Rolling Stones back in 2006. And I knew what a star he would be. I know he has played a handful of games on American soil. I have incredible, deep, deep regret for missing the Argentina-Brazil friendly at MetLife Stadium back 6-7 years ago when it first opened. I had a chance to go to that game. He scored 3 goals in that game. I didn't go. And now he's back on American soil. I'm not going to Moscow for the World Cup. At least I don't, feel like that's going to happen in a couple of years. So this is my opportunity. He's played games now mainly on the West Coast, Seattle, Houston, that sort of. He's in Foxborough this weekend, and I did not commit. And they're playing Venezuela. I probably should have booked a flight. My wife and I were trying to go to New York to see Billy Joel, but she hasn't felt well enough to do anything, quite frankly. So I am now holding out hope that they will make the final, that they will play at MetLife Stadium next Sunday. And look, the tickets are outrageous, $300-400, whatever. I figure it's a bargain considering what it would have cost me to fly to New England, get a hotel room, rent a car, right down the list, right? So to just jump in the car, go up the freeway 3 hours, and see him play next Sunday, if the ticket costs $50 or $100 too much, I'm going to pay it. I'm not going to lie to you. I also have some inside connections working on it. But, is there anything like in your life? Like, I did the baseball tour, and that was a bucket list thing. I don't really have. I hugged Marsha Brady once, right? These things that I wanted to do. I'd like to say hello to Mick Jagger one day or give Bono a high five, but my life won't be incomplete if I don't do that. But I have this chance to see Messi, and I kind of want to do it. Is that weird? Do you find that to be crazy?
No, it's one of the things it's really, I think 2016, with the number of passings in sports and entertainment, and part of our formative years. Now, you and I are in that same age range, and we come in, and, whether you were a huge Prince fan or not, whether you were a huge, Muhammad Ali and had gone and done the history and really are a big boxing aficionado or not, you recognize the gravity of it all. For me, musically, earlier with Bowie, Glenn Frey, all of these guys, that's what I grew up listening with my dad.
Man, I never interviewed Glenn Frey, but, I saw the Eagles 20 times, you know what I mean?
Right.
I've met Joe Walsh and Henley, and I've seen Prince, and I saw Michael Jackson before. I didn't see Elvis, right? But I did see him on TV.
Well, he left the building.
I did see the '68 comeback. But there's things in life that you just want to. I saw Montana play. You know what I mean? I just want to check things off. And some of it feels easy when you live in Baltimore, like to have seen. I saw Derek Jeter play, or I saw Cal Ripken play. But Messi only comes to the continent, He will have played when his whole career is over, 12 games on this continent, right?
Well, but that's what we're talking about, right? And in the context, and this was a conversation that fell out of Muhammad Ali's passing, and then coming out of that weekend, Djokovic winning his 12th Grand Slam title, where you're saying, all right, the greatest. You want to see the greatest. And right now, in the here and now, Messi's a cult figure. They did a thing where they did an instant trading card of him. The thing sold out, all the limited editions of it, sold out 2 minutes after they were put online by people just ravenous for any piece connected, off of that ridiculous hat trick game that he had when he came in as a reserve. So when you have a chance to check those things off, right, we got a big thing out here in Indio, California in October called the Desert Trip with all the legends,
Old Cella.
McCartney and
Old Cella, right?
Old Cella is the joke. But there's a couple of acts on there. I've checked off most of them. I've never seen Roger Waters, but it's football season.
Okay.
I can't exactly say, hey, beat it, I'm not doing work on it.
I'm not spending all that money, go out in the middle of the desert with a bunch of old farts smoking dope and watching bands that are washed up. I can wait till those bands come to my part of the world and watch them washed up.
Well, but that's just it. Here it was, they're all in one fell swoop. But it's just that idea of how many opportunities do you get to go see these guys, mortality on one side and just
I was at Live Aid, right? Literally in Philly in '85. I checked a lot of stuff off. Just in the sports world, music's one thing, right? To say I've seen Springsteen or I saw Mick Jagger, but in the sports realm, this is what I've done for a living forever.
Well, they've also given you a list of places you can't go anywhere near Bruce Springsteen because you've stalked him. So I know there's some restraining orders now that have been put up with your fandom. But with sports, it's the same thing, right? You talk about larger events. You talk about once-in-a-lifetime players. Messi qualifies as one of those guys. You've got those historical courses in golf or whatever.
Yeah, that's not my thing.
You go to it. Well, even if it's not your cup of tea, but to see for me, it's the atmosphere, right? It's, I want to go to Augusta. Am I the biggest golf fan in the world? No. But I want to be in that moment. I've gone to a couple of big NASCAR events, but I've not been to Daytona. You just want to see that world and step into those fans' world for a minute and see what makes them tick. You know, I've got a lot of, I haven't been in this business as long as you, but I've met a lot of these guys, right? You do the Super Bowl junket, you go to a couple of parties, you meet people you'd never thought you'd encounter in your life. But from a sporting perspective, and especially as my kids get older and they're starting to get to a point where sports isn't the enemy and they recognize that it keeps a roof over their head, that we can get back out to some of these things that maybe when we were 25 didn't quite have the same meaning.
Oh, she's going to be a big golf and Rams fan. Don't worry yourself, Harmon. Hey, man, I've made it this far in. I got to let you go, but I just want to say that I don't feel as good about the Stanley Cup this year as I did when your Blackhawks won. I mean, when the Blackhawks won, after all they've been through as an organization, it really is reminiscent of the Orioles, years of anguish. So I felt good for the Blackhawks fans every time they've won. This latest thing that happened that we don't want to talk about, with Yins and that up in the Steel City, tough week for me to be a hockey fan, especially given the way the Caps went down this year, man.
No, I understand. It's certainly one, and it was a blip on the radar, right, because there have been so many other NBA stories floating around, and people start getting excited that football players are putting on, jerseys, maybe too many pads in some places. Sorry, I had to go there. But you just have the
Smart
fact
Alec.
that, I have to. That's my job.
It's what you do.
What's that?
It's what you do.
Well, yeah, exactly. But when you're looking at the Pittsburgh, I think the thing that comes out of it is Crosby, being named the MVP of things when he hadn't scored. I think a lot of folks are calling shenanigans on that. So that leaves, I think, a little bit of a bitter taste in folks' mouths.
I think the goalie had a little bit to do with it.
I think he had himself a series, although he certainly wasn't as tested as the Sharks goalie. Had a couple of barrages here and there. But you look at it on the grand scale, I mean, it allows for some of those legacy questions for Crosby and for the Penguins.
Hey, they won, man. I'm going to give them the credit. I'm just not going to pay any attention to it. That's
no. The league just likes when another team becomes relevant, right? We had Chicago and Los Angeles trading back and forth, and whenever someone else breaks through, I think we like dynasties because we get to do all those all-time great comparisons. But there's also something to be said when you've got a guy like Crosby who's had the career he has, and some wondered, underachieving. When you don't have multiple titles under your belt, no matter how many goals and points you score, people start scratching their heads saying, what is it? What does it mean? And maturation. And
I don't need multiple titles. Just give me one before I die. I'm like a Rangers fan or a Cubs fan. Just let me win once. That's all I ask.
No, that's just it. People forget how hard it is to win just that one. But I think
I don't forget.
No, you don't. And I got mine on the South Side in 2005. If I ever get back there, I'll celebrate every day of it because, well, we realize how hard it is. Teams that were expecting. Look at the Bears, Super Bowl 20. There should have been a dynasty, yet free agency started knocking on the door and picking it apart, and everybody wanted to be a star, so it got ugly. Trust me, I'm 35 years later, they're still making 40 documentaries on those teams, and there's a reason. But for the Penguins to win the Stanley Cup, it gives one of the superstars of the game, another guy that they can push out and now market him with holding trophies, and wherever the NHL can get a little bit of a win, I think it's a good thing, because live there's nothing better than NHL hockey. It's just a matter of getting people into the arenas to understand that.
Mike Harmon, the Swollen Dome on Twitter and at Fox Sports Radio. I bid you adieu. Enjoy yourself out in Los Angeles. We'll check in again soon, pal.
Be well, brother. I'll talk to you after my European Griswoldian vacation.
Ooh, I can't wait to see the pictures on Facebook. Do tell.
No question.
There he goes, buddy. Mike Harmon, headed off to Europe with the family from Los Angeles, California, and Fox Sports Radio. You can check him out at Swollen Dome on Twitter. I'm Nestor, nasty at WNST.net. Finds me all weekend long. The Buy a Toyota Audio Vault, always there for you. And, of course, our morning newspaper at 7 a.m. comes directly to your email inbox, all powered up by Planet Fitness. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 at WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.